Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War, Warhammer 2, Quick Magic gameplay. This time around we are playing as the Beastmen against the Vampire Counts on the map, the Sword of Torgald. So, basically nothing too fancy. This is one of the new sort of Norse-themed maps. I do believe it's for Wolfric's Quest. But as far as our comp goes, I did want to try out the Sons of Ghorst, and I figured they could be pretty strong in this matchup, because obviously one of the big problems for Beastmen going is the fact that they don't really have access to much in the way of magic damage. Prior to the Regiments of Renown, their only access to magic damage was actually just spells. So the Brave Shaman of the Wild, who I did bring here as well, he does have access to Devolve. Of course, you can always bring other sort of lores for magic damage, but I did bring him in the Brave Shaman of the Wild here with Brave Scream, with Devolve, and with Mantle of Gorok still. So and Bestial Surge, of course, depending on what I'd need. But I figure the Sons of Ghorst could be very useful in this matchup because they do provide magic damage that you otherwise can't really get. The new Cygor also provides magic damage, though at that point I don't think it's that useful. But it does give you some good counterplay against these Hex Wraiths and these Ethereal units Vampire Counts like to bring. For the rest of the build, nothing too fancy. Basically a blob of Investigors, who of course trade very well with anything the Undead put on the field, except for maybe Cairn Wraiths. I'm not entirely sure. Probably not. They probably don't trade too well with them, but otherwise they trade really well. We do have a single unit of Chaos Spawn. Of course, one of the big threats is that my opponent could get a nice Fear and Terror out on me, and the Chaos Spawn could help anchor the line against that. They also do hit very hard, so even against Graveguard, they'll still do a decent amount of damage. And they do apply poison, unlike the the Warriors of Chaos Spawn. So they're unbreakables, all that sort of stuff. So they'll give me some extra staying power. And back good old Morghur up. And of course, for Lord, nothing fancy. We did bring Morghur with all his equipment, 2 Chaos Spawn summons, Foe Seeker, Call of Violence, so the usual sort of stuff. And he's ready to party and back up this front line. The Sons of Ghorst, as I mentioned before, to provide that magic damage, and here they're definitely going to have an opportunity to test it out against the Hex Wraiths. They also do have the Butchers. I also did bring the Butchers of Kalkengard. I think they're very good. Obviously, the Terror is useless here, but their ability to regen is just so strong, and their base stats are just so very high. 60 melee defense is ridiculous. These guys are really pretty solid. And then a normal unit of Minotaurs with shields on the other end. Honestly, I could have made these guys Minotaurs with great weapons in retrospect, but it wasn't something I really thought about at the time. And obviously, you don't need that much shielding against the undead, or you don't need the extra melee defense that much against undead. And obviously, you don't need any missile resist, so it might have been a little bit of an iffy pick in retrospect, but we'll definitely see how things play out. For my opponent's build, we decided to go with a little bit of memery here, actually quite a bit of memery. I decided to bring Helman Ghorst. Now, Helman Ghorst did actually get a nerf in the past patch, which is, if you can believe it, Helman Ghorst got a nerf. But he did. If we can find it, the Reliquary of Corruption now requires Ghorst to be in melee. So a lord that's already terrible in melee, basically worthless in melee, now is forced to be in melee to get his AoE damage. This, I think, is absolutely ridiculous. I understand why this mechanic was implemented on lords like the Enchantress, who could just kite and drain, and even the Mortis engine, but really, poor Ghorst. This could have been, honestly, his unique mechanic. He has no speed. He can't kite with the Reliquary of Corruption. So I do think this is a bit of a mistake to have made him that way, but nonetheless, he is here. He is here to meme. He does have the Liber Noctis, which can give him great power reserves, although causing self-damage. He can summon some Graveguard, and he can, of course, use Invocation and Hack. And Beastmen aren't exactly a faction with that many ways to shut him down, so we'll definitely see how he performs. He does have surprisingly high melee defense, all things considered, and melee attack, despite being a corpse cart. Alongside that, my opponent's front line is nothing too fancy. A bunch of Graveguard. These guys will trade relatively okay with anything Beastmen bring. They'll completely trash any lower tier Beastmen infantry, and they'll even do some damage to Bestigors. The Sternsmen, of course, will be helping anchor the line on the flank. Some of the unit of Spears probably didn't have the points, but these guys can just help a little bit. A Necromancer, of course, providing the aura of the AoE aura heal, the Invocation of the Heck, and normal Raise Dead, because of course Ghorst does not get access to normal Raise Dead. He can only summon the Graveguard. Now, interestingly enough, in campaign he can do both normal Raise Dead as well as the Graveguard summon. So I don't know why that's not here, but regardless, that is how it is. Up in the sky, my opponent does have a Terrorgeist, who is already positioning to get annoying and make itself a nuisance. Terrorgeist, I don't think is the best of picks, honestly, against Beastmen. It can do well against Minotaurs, but otherwise, kind of mediocre. It does cause Fear and Terror, which can be a problem. It does have those breath attacks, but it's a specialist against large, so I'm not sure it's honestly the best choice here. Nonetheless, we will see how it does. And a black coach, which you can see even more memery, but it's immediately driving through my Vestigors, who of course were not braced, and it actually does a lot of damage. If you look, you can see they start off with 7,500 HP, and they're already down about 600 in a single pass from black coach. So some very good stuff there. I immediately sick the Minotaurs on him, trying to stop the Black Coach from getting away, doing too much hurt. Fortunately, my opponent does have a unit of Blood Knights on the flank here, and these guys could definitely do a number on my Minotaurs. Blood Knights did get buffed the last patch. Not that they really need it against Minotaurs, but it's going to be a big problem. Fortunately for my opponent, though, his Hexrates do get caught out, and they're not able to disentangle themselves from the Sons of Ghorst, who you can see are decisively stomping them. Sons of Ghorst do have a bit of an edge in the melee stat department, actually quite a significant edge. Their armor's not really worth much in this engagement, but the fact they have magic damage and perfect vigor means that they're going to completely dumpster these Hexrates for very, very low casualties. You can see these guys have already lost about half their models and are just getting completely demolished. So it's some cool stuff. Sons of Ghorst having an absolute field day. For the rest of our engagement, things are going down in the front line, where I have hit my opponent with a Devolve, immediately melting these Graveguard, helping kind of annihilate this front line. And these are, I managed to hit all 3 units of Graveguard here, so some very fortunate sort of engagement for me. Unfortunately, on this flank, my opponent does get a lovely Terrorgeist charge in there, and these Minotaurs with shields are not having a good day at all. They've only gotten 1 kill against Blood Knights, which is pretty pitiful. You can see, though, the Butchers are going to dive in, and they're going to start doing some nasty work. My opponent responding with the Sternsmen, so it's becoming a bit of a cluster engagement here, and definitely things not going too great for me. You can see the Minotaurs here being routed. I'm not really able to stop the Blood Knights from chasing them off, and you can see the Minotaurs are just getting completely mauled. They're not going to be able to escape, and 1,400 gold basically down the drain there, so for very little gain. Now, fortunately for me, though, the Butchers of Kalkengard here are engaging. They are regenning, and they're slugging out with the Terrorgeist, and they're doing pretty well. Despite everything, despite its bonus for slaughters, the Terrorgeist is actually going to struggle. It's going to have a sub-average chance to hit these guys just because their daily defense is so high, and that's very good for me. On the periphery, you can see my opponent does summon some Graveguard, but his front line is basically gone. You can see my Chaos Spawner in there. I've got my Brave Shaman in there. Morghur is in there. And now, unfortunately, I'm not very good about my Vestigors. I should be swinging them around to get a nice flank on this remaining pocket of Graveguard, but I don't. Nonetheless, you can see Morghur is in there. He's slugging it out. He's doing a great job. And slowly but surely, my opponent's army is falling apart. So this sort of slow and steady chip damage from all these Vestigors. Now, granted, he's getting Helm and Ghorst into the fray, trying to proc that Liber Noctis and drain my own HP. But it's not really quite working out. You can see Morghur is on him. He's trying to beat him down. Now, granted, like I mentioned before, Helm and Ghorst does have surprisingly decent melee defense for a Corpse Cart, so he's not going down quite that quickly. He has a lot of HP too, so it's taking a little while, but still, he will go down ultimately. Over here, the Sons of Ghorst do get a lovely surround on the Black Coach, and they are able to absolutely dumpster it. It's actually healing probably from the casting-based heal from the lore of vampires, but nonetheless, you can see the Black Coach is going to be forced off. Vestigors here are pursuing the Sternsmen, and this is a grave mistake on my opponent's part. Graveguard. But I should stay away from puns. But my opponent makes a grave mistake here. He lets his Graveguard overextend, pursuing the Minotaurs, who shattered, and now they're all the way out here. And of course, Sternsmen are very slow, so they're not going to be able to re-engage here. In the meantime, the Butchers and the Sons of Ghorst and these Vestigors are going to completely tear apart this Black Coach and really ruin my opponent's day. Now, granted, because I've made this horrible mistake here with this cluster, I'm getting breathed on by the annoying Terrorgeist, and my opponent's kind of just harassing me. So definitely a bit of a nuisance from my perspective. And definitely some mistakes made. You can see my opponent actually, I do believe does he have 2 units? He has gotten both units of Graveguard summoned, so he's definitely got good Graveguard presence, but we are getting full surround. These guys are disintegrating, not having the greatest day, and he is forced to pull his Terrorgeist down from the sky to try to fight back. But this is a bad situation for it. It's going to get surrounded, and it's going to start taking a nasty beating because, of course, the Butchers, the moment it landed, I told my Butchers to attack it, and they're going to start hitting it really hard. They've got 100 damage, and actually it's up to 132 now with all the buffs. A monster's melee attack, and they're just going to tear this Terrorgeist to shreds if they are allowed to keep working. And unfortunately for my opponent, he is now out of summons of Graveguard. He can't get any more. His last sort of pockets here are falling apart. And that's going to leave Ghorst isolated and unable to escape, and of course, even against just Chaos Spawn and Morghur, he doesn't stand a chance, much less all these Vestigors. You can see the Sons of Ghorst did get terror routed, so that was definitely a sort of good move there for my opponent with making use of his Terrorgeist to really apply some pressure to my Butchers to force off some of my Centaurs, but nonetheless, it's too little too late, as at this point Helm and Ghorst is getting isolated. Poor Memester is getting destroyed. You can see a nice little breath attack goes in. My opponent making great use of those breath attacks, and may not really making use of a good positioning, but nonetheless, here at the end, it just isn't going to save him. Terrorgeist is just getting beaten down. Morghur is still very healthy. Obviously, the Sternsmen are a pretty tanky unit. They could endure for a good bit, and we do have some terror outs here and there, but really it's just too little too late at this point. As the spawn, we do get a little Brace Scream in there, a little Brace Scream action. helping destroy those Stearnsmen a little bit, and really at this point it's just a matter of time as my army cleaves its way through this front line, cleaves its way through the Terrorgeist. You can see its HP just tanking, and the Stearnsmen in it finally crumble, so granting a Pyrrhic victory to the Beastmen. I do think this is a relatively competitive build. It's much like the Mino. It's basically kind of like a Mino bus. I don't necessarily think, in retrospect, the Minotaurs with shields, I don't think were necessarily that great of a pick. Perhaps just great weapons would have been good. I don't know what exactly I would have cut to make room for them. Maybe Foe Seeker on Morghur or something like that. I don't know if I gave these guys a Chevron, but if I was able to cut some corners, I could have perhaps upgraded these guys to great weapons, and that would have been useful against the Blood Knights and the Terrorgeist. As it stood, they basically got routed. This was probably my biggest mistake, was throwing the Minotaurs in against the Terrorgeist, getting them shut down hard by the Blood Knights, and cost me about 1,400 gold for very little on my opponent's end. On my opponent's side, definitely a huge misplay with the Hex Wraiths. He threw, essentially, these guys are fast enough to outpace the Centaurs, I'm pretty sure. Centaurs move 1 point faster, but these guys are do ignore terrain penalties, so I'm pretty sure the Hex Wraiths will be able to outpace them. I mean, definitely, my opponent didn't want his Hex Wraiths engaging on the Sons of Ghorst. I don't think he realized that these guys do magic damage, but definitely be wary of them if you're trying to make use of Hex and Cairn Wraiths and all those units. And also keep it in mind if you're playing as Beastmen, Hex Wraiths, Cairn Wraiths, can be a pretty major threat, especially if you don't bring some source of good magic damage to melt them down, or if your opponent just brings too many or spreads them out well enough so you can't shut them all down. Having a source of magic damage like Sons of Ghorst can be a lifesaver, so keep that in mind. For sure. Obviously, my opponent's build, not the most competitive. He was trying to make a bit of a meme build here with good old Helm Ghorst. I do think the nerfs to Reliquary Corruption for Helm Ghorst are a bit of a mistake. I think it makes sense for all or most of the other units, but for Helman, who's so slow, it really doesn't make sense. Honestly, he's just so pitiful already. The last thing he needed was a nerf, so I do think that was a bit of a mistake on CA's part, just nerfing him like that. But nonetheless, cool effort from my opponent there, trying out to make Ghorst work. I definitely got a little sloppy with my growth towards the end, and allowed my guys to get nuked down by breath attacks from Terrorgeist. So good value there. You can see got 2 chevrons and almost 60 kills against Best of Ghorst. Not a mean feat. And Minotaurs, of course, and all those units. So yeah, good game. You can see good game to my opponent. D-Geist, DG-Ice. I don't know, but either way, good game. It was a lot of fun. I found it entertaining, and I hope you guys did too. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe below. If you have any comments, any criticism, anything like that, be sure to share them, and I will respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.